All right, Taylor. So I have picked out a text for us to look at.
Great.
It is John 1, verse 35 through 42. And I'll go ahead and read it because
Sure.
that's what we should start with, I
Yep.
think, is we always start by reading the passage.
Yep. One time together and then time to break off and do it, like study it again, make the observations on your own.
Okay, so
Yes.
so we won't take our own time
Right.
here on this video.
Yep.
But when we're leading this, we'll read it all together as a group and then give kids opportunities to just look through it kind of on their own and make those observations.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, here, I'll go ahead and read the text. The next day, John was there again with two of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." When the two disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, "What do you want?" They said, "Rabbi," which means teacher. "Where are you staying?" "Come," he replied, "you will see." So they went and saw where they were staying, and they spent the day with him. It was about 4 p.m. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah, that is, the Christ." And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which, when translated, is Peter. All right, so that's our text. What do we do now?
Yeah, so you're gonna look at the text again and you're gonna think about like what are any things that are like sticking out to you. Observations a lot of times is like who, what, where, when, so like thinking about like what is here. So it's really just like I like to think of it as like I need to kind of like get the details together so that I can start to like ask questions and formulate and think, and it's okay to have questions while you're making observations. Like I would jot them down on the side, but really think like what's here, what's in the text. So should we make some observations?
Yeah, so actually our ATVs and the students in our home groups have journals.
Oh, great.
Each of them have journals and pens. So this would be a time where could have students get their journals, get their pens out, and just start listing things.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So Taylor, what are some observations you would make from this passage?
Sure. So I would say one thing that stood out to me, it says the next day. So not making an interpretation, but saying like this happened the next day. So thinking like, okay, maybe it happened before something, but I wouldn't say that in the observation. I would just say it happened the next day, or like that stood out to me. Yeah. Or like Jesus says in verse, which verse is it? He says in verse 39, "Come." Like he invites somebody, so he says, "Come." So like just simple things like that. It's nothing like Jesus said come and so that means this. Like no, it's just Jesus said come. Yeah.
So let me take a shot at this.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm noticing that people were interested in Jesus because they follow. It says in verse 37 they follow Jesus.
Sure.
And so they might be interested, or at least curious about. There was something about Jesus worth following.
Yeah, I think you're bordering on the line of an interpretation there. I think an observation would be people follow Jesus. But then that could be a question of like, were they interested? Why were they following Jesus? That would be in the next section.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one other observation is saying it looks like there's brothers here.
Yeah.
Brothers and family
Yep.
are involved in this passage.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent observation. Yeah. And you can see that clearly in the text, right? And I wouldn't argue, be like, no, there's no brothers because, it says in the passage.
Where my previous observation, when I said they're interested in Jesus, it doesn't necessarily say they're interested. It just says they're following. We don't know why they're following.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Great. So then maybe we can take some of these observations and turn them into questions.
Yeah.
Which would be
the next section.
In our interpretation.
Interpretation. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and do the next video for interpretation.
Sounds great.